The Red Wings are red hot. We had controversy in DC. Coach Q returns to Chicago, and Utah looks to stay perfect on home ice. All that and more on this edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before. Only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hey, hockey fans, welcome to Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thanks for making Locked On NHL Game Night your place to get a recap of the night in the NHL during the regular season and the playoffs. We are here all season long, and we're available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. I'm Eddie Garcia, an LA Kings fan on the West Coast. He is Alex Wiederspiel, a New York Rangers fan on the East Coast. And together, we're here to tell you about all the goals, saves, big moments, and stories from the night in the NHL with a big assist from our Locked On local experts. Alex, a bit of a lighter night on Sunday, but 4 games to talk about and 4 pretty interesting games.
Well, one of the reasons I do like it, listen, as much as I love the hockey overload of some of those nights we've had where it's, 12, 14, and I know you and Shukri had a 16-game night way early in the season. I do enjoy, I like being able to give the personal little TLC to 4 games. That's a pretty nice way to watch hockey. 2 on at the same time is not as crazy as 6 on at the same time. So I enjoyed that.
Amen to that. And let's get it started in Hockey Town, where the Red Wings are very excited about their start of the season. They were hosting the Edmonton Oilers, and Detroit posting a 4-2 victory for their 5th win in a row. They lost opening night. They haven't lost since, as you might imagine. One of our local experts, very excited about it. The host of Locked On Detroit Red Wings, he is Brian Fisher.
We are so back. The Detroit Red Wings have beaten the Edmonton Oilers 4-2 on home ice, finishing out this long homestand to start the season 5-1, beating Toronto twice, beating Edmonton, Florida, and Tampa Bay, riding a 5-game winning streak. Another really strong performance. The Red Wings aggressive forecheck to speed up their opponents. In this case, the Oilers is continuing to work wonders, forcing turnovers and then capitalizing on those mistakes. In this game, we saw Emmett Finney, after a string of very good games, finally break through, and the 2023 seventh round pick, scores his first NHL goal to put the Red Wings up 2-0 in the second period, and then he tacks on another one for a 2-goal, 3-point performance, and Dylan Larkin stays hot too. He's got now 4 points in this game, 11 in 6.
And thanks to Brian Fisher for that report. Dylan Larkin, 2 goals, 2 assists. He's got a point in all 6 games so far this season. Beautiful goal in this one, kind of a saucer pass. He shoots it on a one-timer right in the net. I mean, it's high skill. You've got the nice story in Emmett Finney as well, the young guy chipping in. And John Gibson bouncing back from a rough debut with Detroit. He had 2 goals allowed on just 18 shots, but it's working well for Detroit. Todd McClellan called him out after the opening night loss, and they responded.
That goal from Larkin was really sick, by the way, because, I mean, if you saw it, that pass from Ben Sherratt was not great, kind of a knuckle puck, and it just perfectly lands, and Larkin hits it with high skill in that moment. That in most cases, I feel like that's going to be shot way wide, and it's just perfect timing for the goal there. But I think the most impressive thing is that since Todd McClellan called them out, the way Detroit has been defending, I know the cliche is about active sticks, but I think guys are really, especially in the defensive zone. I mean, listen, defending happens right in all 3 zones, but in the defensive zone, Detroit has been particularly good. And in this game, they limited an Edmonton team who definitely is having some issues right now creating chances. They limited Edmonton to 9 high danger chances throughout the entire game, which is right around where Edmonton's been on the season, which is close to, I want to say, bottom 6 or bottom 5 for the year, which is just not where we expect to see the Oilers in creating high danger stuff with guys like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And Draisaitl, man, you got to feel for him, right? He had one late in that game that he was essentially in all alone and the puck rolled on his stick.
Yeah, so things are going very well in Detroit. Excited about it, understandably so. And as you heard Brian say, the list of opponents that they have beaten is pretty impressive as well. And that does still include the Edmonton Oilers, of course, making to the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row, but they're not off to the start that they expected. Let's check in with our host of Locked On Edmonton Oilers. That is Nick Zeraris.
Good day. The Edmonton Oilers look like a bad hockey team. Nick Zeraris of Locked On Oilers here on the second half of a back-to-back, the Oilers falling 4-2 to the Detroit Red Wings in a game where every aspect of the Oilers operation is off right now. The defenders are not breaking pucks out cleanly. They are losing a lot of 50-50 pucks below their own goal line. Forwards are not making themselves available to receive breakout passes to try and absorb some of that pressure in the defensive zone to get to offense. And then most glaringly and most alarmingly for a team that has an abundance of forwards who have some offensive ability, the Oilers are not creating dangerous offense. They are not getting pucks in deep. Pucks are not being followed up on once being dumped in. There's no puck support for attacking players, guys making themselves available in dangerous areas to create conflict for defenders. And right now, every single part of this Oilers team looks clunky and disjointed. And for the third straight year, October is ugly.
And thanks to Nick Zeraris for that report. He's not wrong. But as he said, for a third straight year, they don't start well, but we know how they finish. So while there's excitement in Detroit, and understandably so, I don't think there's a lot of panic right now. They don't like what they're seeing in Edmonton, but they know things like Connor McDavid not having a goal yet on the season, which is the case, that's not going to last.
Yeah, and Edmonton's missing Zach Hyman. They're missing Jake Wallman. These are important players to driving 5-on-5 offense, right? Like Hyman is a big-time net front guy, and Wallman is going to be one of their best breakout players in the D zone. And missing both of them at the same time at a portion of the season when Edmonton historically, and I use that term loosely since we're talking about recent history, has not been very good. I think that all adds up to a group that played late into June last year and naturally is going to have some issues starting the season. I think, like with most things for the Oilers, they don't need to overreact, as you pointed out, to a start this time of year. I think the one concern that I would have, and this is always kind of the concern that I have when we get to the end of June with the Oilers, is are they exerting too much energy down the stretch just to get themselves into a decent spot in the playoffs because they don't start well? And I there's no real way of proving that, but we've seen the Oilers have had to go on some pretty serious runs in the past couple of years to do this. Obviously, the way Chris Knoblauch got there in the first place, them firing a coach because of a nightmarish October start. So that's the one thing that I'd be a little concerned about is do they force themselves to exert too much energy later on in the season by not banking some points early? But I would say based on what we've seen them do these past couple of years with, not great starts to October, I don't think it's time to panic quite yet in Edmonton.
Yeah, it's 2-3-1. It's certainly not what you would expect, but there's as they have taught us, they know how to get things on the right track when it matters most. But for Detroit, understand the excitement. 5-1 now on the season. They have not experienced playoff hockey in Hockey Town for quite a while, so forgive them if they are feeling a little excited right now. Understandably so.
I told Cam this the other night. This is one of my favorite stats. Detroit 9-year drought, which could go to 10-year this year, is already the single longest playoff drought for an original 6 team. Beating out, I believe the Bruins were at 8 years and the Rangers were at 7, and Detroit surpassed them last year at 9. So I'm assuming in their centennial anniversary, they do not want to make that 10 years, 1/10 of their existence in a row without the playoffs. And listen, I that was probably my biggest one that I put myself on the line for at the start of the season. I have Detroit finishing 3rd at in the Atlantic Division. I got to tell you, early on, I feel pretty good about that prediction. I wasn't sure I was going to feel that way to start this season, especially not after that Montreal performance.
All right, we've got some controversy to talk about in DC. We've got a hit to talk about. We've got a coach's challenge to talk about. We'll do that next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. Obviously, hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats going to the arena for an early season game. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump up right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Gametime comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I love that what you see is what you pay for. There's no hidden fees at checkout. Plus, I see exactly the view I'm going to get before I buy my tickets with their in-app seat view feature. Their zone deals are a big game changer. You pick the section, Gametime picks your seat, and you save big. You can even find NHL tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL. You get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. All right, we've got a very, very interesting game to talk about in DC as the Capitals were hosting the Canucks. Vancouver skates away with a 4-3 win. They got off to a great start, then had to hold on to snap Washington's 4-game winning streak. We'll get a check-in with one of our local experts on this one. It is the host of Locked On Washington Capitals, and that is Dan Holme.
Capitals' 4-game winning streak grinds to a halt. Hi, this is Dan Holme of Locked On Capitals. Well, the Caps fall to the Canucks by a score of 4-3. And it is a Canucks team that poured it on early in the first period, and the Capitals did not have the answer. The first period was rough. They struggled on the forecheck, breakout exits, and zone management. And after the game, Spencer Carberry said, "We simply were not ready." Special teams are still an area of concern as the Capitals were 1 for 4 on the power play. But it wasn't for a lack of trying, right? The Capitals outshot the Canucks 31-24, and the Capitals did try to stage a comeback in the third period. The game saw goals from Chychrun, Carlson, and Ryan Leonard, and the physicality, the hit of Tom Wilson on Hedl as he left the game is under scrutiny. I'll have much more on this for you later on Locked On Caps.
And thanks to Dan Holme for that. We will talk about, though, and scrutinize that hit here in just a minute. But again, Vancouver, 3 first period goals. They have a 4-0 lead. Then they have to kind of hold on for a 4-3 win. But Canucks off to a nice start to the season. A little bit better than I thought. 4-2. Both teams, by the way, 4-2 now on the year. But in this game, Elias Pettersson, the forward, not the defenseman, gets his first goal of the season. And if you would have told me Vancouver was going to be 4-2 and Elias Pettersson had 1 goal on the season, I'd say, wow, that's pretty surprising. But that is the case at this point for Vancouver.
Also, the most important thing EP40 did tonight probably wasn't score a goal, though admittedly they needed every single one of them. By the way, don't you love when a coach says we just weren't ready? I just want to be like, whose job is that? Whose responsibility is that to get them ready? I wonder. It's one of my favorite coach cliches, and I think Spencer Carberry is a fantastic coach, but it's very funny when the coach says we just weren't ready. I wonder, whose job is that?
Well, maybe Spencer Carberry wasn't ready to challenge a goal in this one because there was a little bit of a controversy in a couple of different situations. Let's start, though, with the coach's challenge. So second goal of the game for Vancouver obviously makes it 2-0. There's a scramble in front of the net, and it looked like Charlie Lindgren had covered the puck at least momentarily, but the whistle was not blown, and Vancouver kept playing. They eventually poke at it. It gets loose. It gets put into the net. Spencer Carberry decides to challenge for goalie interference. It didn't work out for him. And then delay a game, Canucks get a power play, they score. And this ends up being a 1-goal game. So clearly in hindsight, this is a big call. What did you think about the play not being blown dead? And subsequently, what did you think about the challenge by Spencer Carberry?
Yeah, I did not like the challenge, and here's why. I think the issue you're going to run into is it's about game management when you're the coach, right? And first period, you can still overcome a 2-goal deficit, but you put your group on the power play or on the penalty kill, I should say, in that situation, and you are inviting potential catastrophe, which is exactly what occurs when Kiefer Sherwood bangs home goal number 3 just about a minute and a half later on the power play that ensued as a result of them losing the challenge. So I just don't think the risk reward was worth it in that scenario. Now, I will say this from an officiating perspective, I am not an official, but I feel like I have seen that go both ways before, where you get the really quick whistle and you get the official who will kind of let things go. And my issue with the NHL has always been there are some plays where it's often left to the judgment of the official, and that is just simply unsatisfying for fans. Now, in this instance, there is a moment where Charlie Lindgren has that puck covered. It is very, very brief. And again, I have seen officials call that and blow that dead. I have also seen officials let that go like we saw. And that, to me, that gray area is not going to make anybody particularly happy. I'm pro goal. I want to see offense. I want to see goals scored. But I will say, when you're letting a play like that continue, there is some danger there. I mean, what Charlie Lindgren was missing half of his equipment by the end of that play. There's some danger by allowing that play to go.
And that's why they usually do blow the whistle quickly. I thought he covered it long enough. And of course, the old rule or the old, cliche is lose sight of the puck, blow the whistle. Even if you don't know where it is necessarily, if you don't see it, you almost assume that it's covered. And I don't know how the referee could have seen that puck was loose, because I couldn't tell on the replay if it was loose or not. However, I agree with you. I don't know exactly what was Spencer Carberry challenging on this, because you can't challenge the referee should have blown the whistle. That's not, he was challenging for goalie interference, and I don't know where everyone was flailing in the crease. I don't know where there was, you could have singled out a moment where the goalie was interfered with. So didn't agree with that challenge as well. So did not work out in the favor of Washington, and you have to say it's part of the reason, at least, why they lost this game and had their 4-game winning streak come to an end. Want to talk about the hit, though, in this one. If people didn't see it, Philip Hedl of the Vancouver Canucks was making a pass. It was just out of their own zone. And Tom Wilson, who we know has had a history, although I think he's actually done a pretty decent job of kind of cleaning himself up. We've seen him early in his career. He was really out of control at times. He almost wondered, was this guy ever going to really turn into a legitimate NHL player? He has. But this was kind of a little bit of the old Tom Wilson. He hit Philip Hedl high, and I thought it was late. Now, back in the day, a lot of that would have been fine when I first started watching hockey, and they would have said, don't admire your pass, keep your head up. That's not the case anymore. And I think it's a good thing that a lot of those Scott Stevens hits are not in the game anymore, not only for the safety of the player, but just, in general, those kind of headhunting things. I like violence, but I thought this was late. I thought it was a late hit by Tom Wilson. And the real thing that has to drive you crazy if you're a Canucks fan, they call a 5-minute major, and then they review it, and they said, oh, no penalty. How do you go from calling a 5-minute? I know you want to review it and get the call right, but you call a penalty on the ice, and then you look at it and say, no, it's not a penalty? Okay, I don't know about that. That really raised my eyes in this one.
Oh, I'm 100% with you on that. I don't think you should be able to call it a 5-minute major and then reduce it to nothing. Either it's a major and you call it and say, okay, actually that's a minor, or it's a major. It can't not be a penalty. You called it on the ice a penalty. The one thing I will note is I don't think it was as high as I initially thought. I think the problem is Hedl's head snaps back, but I think he got him in the chest. And Hedl, of course, I mean, listen, he's got a horrible concussion history, and you really hope that he's going to be okay, because I'd love to watch him continue his career. I think he's an electric player when he is playing with confidence, but that's a guy who's lost a lot of his confidence when he deals with injuries like this, which unfortunately is all too common. But I 100% agree with you. That was late. That was 1 or 2 strides too many. And I was watching the TSN, I think it was TSN, but I was watching the Vancouver broadcast and not the Washington broadcast today. And they generally agreed. They thought that was at least 1 stride, if not 2, too late. So to me, that seems like clear interference. So at bare minimum, that's a 2-minute minor. Whether or not it's a major is another question entirely. But I would like to see a hit like that removed from the game, purely because, as you pointed out, that hit was not on time.
100%. And again, to go from 5-minute major to nothing, it's like, how do you make that call? It's got to be something. And then, as you mentioned, Philip Hedl has a history of concussions. And it's Tom Wilson. So it's the perfect combination of a guy who stepped over the line before and a guy who unfortunately has had a history of that as well. So we'll see. I don't know if this is eligible to be reviewed for supplementary discipline. I guess everything is, but how would you fine or suspend someone for something that was not called a penalty on the ice? I guess they could do it, but it would be very odd.
If I'm remembering correctly, because it wasn't called a penalty, they cannot suspend him. I do think they could fine him. I think that is, I'll have to double check the rule. I think they can, but again, fining these players, I mean, that is not a deterrent in this case.
No, you're very, very true on that. We still got 2 more games to talk about. Coach Q returning to the Windy City with his new team, a thrilling finish in that one. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to bet across the app. I love using FanDuel because if it's however you like to bet, player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds, it makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your favorite team or keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It makes every game more exciting, and also it's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sunday. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, 2 more games to go. Let's talk about the Chicago Blackhawks, who are off to a nice start hosting the Anaheim Ducks. And if maybe you're unaware, there is a new coach in Anaheim. His name is Joel Quenneville. He had 3 Stanley Cup titles as a head coach of the Blackhawks, and back in the Windy City, not for the first time, because remember he coached the Panthers, but the first time with this new team, his Anaheim Ducks. And the old coach does not get a victory, although Kate was close. 2-1 overtime win for Chicago. It was Ryan Donato getting the game winner in sudden death. Spencer Knight, a nice game in net, 1 goal allowed on 39 shots. Both goalies actually played well. Mason McTavish with a beautiful goal. For a 6-on-4 power play. They had a power play and they pulled the goalie in the final minute. 36 seconds left. He ties it up with a beautiful shot, but the extra point goes to Chicago in this one. But the Blackhawks, thrilling game so far, competitive game so far. This was the 5th game so far this season that was a 1-goal game for them. So they are being a very competitive team right now. And although this isn't high school sports, I think this is a very positive sign for Chicago.
They are competent. I think that is maybe the nicest thing that I can say about Chicago after the way the last couple of seasons have gone there. They are competent. And if you are competent, you're going to win some games. And not only that, they are competent with guys who are high-end talents, right? So if you are competent with high-end talent, there are going to be nights where ultimately that talent's going to take over. And I thought that's exactly what Connor Bedard did in the 3-on-3 overtime. First, I think his skating does look much improved from last season. I know that was a big storyline that maybe he wasn't fast enough, especially for a guy of his size. But during the 3-on-3, he was an absolute dog on the puck. And it was most notable. He only had 1 very, very short break, gets right back on the ice, and he leads an odd man rush, gets a real good shot off on Lucas Dostal, and Dostal makes the save but can't control the rebound. Connor Bedard, first man behind the net on the rebound, and instead of trying to wrap it around, he makes a gorgeous pass from below the goal line to a wide open Ryan Donato. I just think these are the types of plays that Connor Bedard, this is what I think is going to wind up making him really, really special in Chicago. This is a guy who we know has one of the most lethal shots in the NHL. But right now, what is required of him in Chicago is being more of a playmaker and a play driver, and a guy who is going to help others kind of get into the right position. I think he's doing a great job of it so far this year. And that's part of the reason the Blackhawks have had a pretty nice start to the year.
A lot of good young talent on display in this one. I know there were no goals through the first 2 periods, but you look at you look at a Chicago team that obviously is still in the midst of that rebuild. Frank Nazar, by the way, another young player for them, had a goal, his 3rd of the year. We talked about Mason McTavish tying it up for Anaheim. Lucas Dostal is a good young netminder. The Ducks a little bit ahead, you would say, of Chicago in the rebuild department, if you want to rebuild, retool, whatever you want to call it. The Ducks have some hopes of being in the playoff mix this season. That's why they went out and added some veteran guys like Chris Kreider and Mikael Granlund and those kind of guys. So again, 2 teams, a lot of young talent, both in kind of different areas of their rebuild. But I think both are showing glimpses, even from this game, about where they're going, that it is starting to move in the right direction. Took a little longer for Chicago, but I think it's finally starting to see, we're starting to see some of that young talent blossoming.
The Ducks are fun, by the way. Like, they are a lot of fun, and kudos to Spencer Knight for keeping Chicago in this one. I didn't think that he wasn't tested in the same way that another goalie we're going to talk about in the next segment was. They were more peppering him. But Anaheim right now, if you go by natural stat tricks high danger model, Anaheim is first in high danger chances for per 60 minutes, and they are 32nd in high danger chances against per 60 minutes. So they are essentially playing river hockey right now, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And I think if that's what they're going to play, I'm going to enjoy watching Anaheim games for much of the season. I don't know how often they're going to be able to get that second point on a night like tonight if they're playing like that. But you are spot on. The young talent is blossoming finally. And some of that is with the help of guys like, veterans like Chris Kreider and Frank Vetrano, who have stepped up, and Jacob Trouba's playing a little better this year. But yeah, they're a fun team. They just didn't get that extra point tonight.
Mammoth hosting the Bruins in our final game to talk about. This one was a fun game as well. I don't know if it was fun if you're a goaltender or maybe a head coach, but a lot of odd man rushes, a lot of scoring opportunities in this one. Not quite as many finishes. It was 3-2. Utah gets the win over Boston in this one. But a fun game, a lot of scoring chances, and some pretty good talent on display as well. Let's check in with one of our local experts. It's the host of Locked On Boston Bruins. His name is Ian McLaren.
Message was received by David Pastrnak. He scored 2 goals tonight against the Utah Mammoth, but that's all the offense the Bruins could muster in their 4th straight loss. This is Ian McLaren, host of Locked On Boston Bruins, and if you looked at the last stretch of games on the schedule, you would have penciled in some losses here. Tampa, Colorado, Vegas, now Utah. The Bruins, after their 3-0 start, now have a losing record for the first time this season. David Pastrnak was benched on Saturday, late in the 3rd period against Colorado. He responded with 2 goals in this one, but nobody else could muster much offense. They only had 3 shots in the 3rd period as they were trying to get the W. So now they'll head home, and who's coming to town but Brad Marchand and the Florida Panthers. That game will be Tuesday. Tough start for the Bruins, and it's not going to get any easier in their next game. Catch all the latest on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
And thanks to Ian McLaren for that report. A battle of backup goalies in this one. I thought they both played really, really well. Jonas Korpisalo for Boston and Vitek Vanacek for Utah. But the Bruins, as he mentioned, win 3, now lose 4. Utah, on the other hand, 4-2, and they are perfect 3-0 on home ice. The game-winning goal in this one scored by Dylan Guenther, and it was J.J. Peterka, one of their big new additions in the offseason, made a great defensive play, stole the puck, set up Guenther for the one-timer, and that ends up being your game-winning goal.
Yeah, and I will say this with Utah. Before tonight, I'm still not sure we had really seen their fastball. I'm still not sure we really saw their fastball tonight either, which is really good for a team with playoff aspirations who plays in the most difficult division in hockey. Like, there's going to be one deserving playoff team at least who does not make it out of the Central Division, whether that's Utah or St. Louis or Minnesota. There's going to be one of them. And even Nashville's kind of started off kind of nice this season, even though I don't know that that's necessarily for real. So kudos to the Mammoth, because they have managed to start 4-2 without, I think, playing their best hockey. If they're able to look more like they did tonight, especially in the latter stages of that game, 2nd and 3rd period, I think they're going to be hard to keep out of the playoff conversation.
By the way, have you seen the new mascot for Utah, Tusky? Have you checked him out yet?
Yeah. He looks like he should be in Jabba's palace, man. In Return of the Jedi. Yeah, he should be playing in the band.
Right. He could be. He could have Luke hung upside down in a frozen ice cave or something like that. You're saying?
Oh yeah, no, something like that. Yeah. He looks like a Star Wars. He looks like a Star Wars critter.
If you haven't seen Tusky, check him out.
Yeah.
That'll do it for this episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. If you want complete coverage of your favorite team, we have a local host that's ready to tell you all about it. We have a show for virtually every team. We're working on a couple in New Jersey and Calgary, but podcast, YouTube show for your favorite team. You should like and subscribe those shows, podcasts, as well as Locked On NHL Game Night. We are here for you each and every night through the regular season and the playoffs. And like and subscribe. And we'd love to even see your comments in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. For Alex Wiederspiel, I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.